Right. The live stream should have started now, Chair, so whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. If you wish to speak, can you please use the remote raise hand function? When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants please ensure your microphone and camera is on to ensure that you can be seen and heard when actively participating. Please ensure all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of recording. And on that note, welcome to everyone attending this evening's meeting. We'll get right into item 1, which is apologies for absence. I have one from Councillor Emma Goodjohn. Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Haynes. He has a family emergency.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Any others?
I've not had anything through, Chair, so obviously unless members have any others.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Moving on to item 2, any declarations of interest in the nature of such interests? No. Okay. Item 3. So it's previous minutes. So to agree previous minutes for the meetings on the 27th of June, 19th September, and the 4th of October. If anyone's got any thoughts or comments, Councillor Payne.
Hiya, yeah, just to second those minutes. I think there's 3 on block. I'm happy to on block. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thanks, Alan.
I was happy to do the same thing.
Thank you. The more the merrier. Thanks. Agenda item 4 then. So consultation on the draft school accessibility strategy 25 to 27. Trevor and Lisa.
Hi, Chair. I believe Trevor is with us. I just waiting on Lisa. She just had 1 or 2 technical issues. We're just sorting those out now, so please bear with us.
Sure, no problem. Hello, Trevor.
Hi there. I'll crack on while Lisa gets connected. So this is a report that went to Cabinet in September, and it was seeking permission to consult on our draft school accessibility strategy for 2025 to 2027. The actual strategy itself is attached as an appendix. The consultation period opened from the 7th of October, and it runs now until mid-November. I think it's the 18th of November. And the strategy is done with reference to Welsh Government guidance around planning to increase access for all of our learners in schools. And there's a requirement for Welsh Government to prepare and implement accessibility strategies to make sure that our kids can access the provision that we put forward for them. So that's what this document is setting out to do. The document itself outlines some of the background and what our focus is going forward, which is to try and make each individual school as accessible as possible to local pupils, as opposed to individual areas of expertise, as you will. And then it goes through and talks about some of the provision that we have in place. So this is looking at some of the physical capital elements to a scheme. So the physical access to buildings and advice to schools on some of the accessibility issues. There's a number of different strategies that this relates to. So we have a learning and skills investment strategy, for example, which looks at where we invest in our education estate. We have an asset renewal plan, the Council's capital programme, as well as some of the principles we have through ALN and our strategic plans at team level. So that's it, basically. It's just to introduce this report and to gather any comments from members as part of the consultation process. Those comments can either be given to us today or just to raise awareness that the consultation is open until the 18th of November, and we welcome feedback from everyone as part of this draft consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trevor. Yeah, the consultation is out until the 18th of November. I had a question around, I have raised this issue and that is around the missing children, the children that are not in education, they're not homeschooled. How do we account for them as part of the strategy? Do they in fact have additional learning needs that we are not aware of? And there was a second bit to that, Trevor, and that was around how do we account for those who do have additional learning needs? And is there a high percentage of those who are not in school that do have additional learning needs that we need to look at? Thank you.
Yeah, so as you know, additional learning needs, the growth and demand has been exponential basically over the past few years. And our premise is to make sure that local students can access local provision in their own local schools as much as possible. So the document does make reference to a lot of the specialist support that we have in place. So it isn't just our special school, for example. We have our Havan and Horizon resource bases. We have our hearing impairment centres at Cogan, for example, and St. Cyrie's. We have specialist resource base at Gwainanant. So there's lots of different opportunities to access that provision in different areas. We do have a duty of care to make sure that we can provide those facilities to our students. So part of the work that we're doing is not just making sure that accessibility is there, but assessing the need. So what you've been referencing around making sure we know exactly what that need is in the area and what we're finding at the moment. And we've discussed in previous meetings as well, is that change in demand. So a lot of the complex needs that are changing, some of the physical challenges that some of our pupils have in accessing some of our provision, and the challenges around our estate. So it's fantastic that we have so many 21st century schools, but we still have quite a few older Victorian schools that have accessibility issues. And there's reference in that report to some of the general duties that we have as a local authority. So for example, everything that we have to do under the Equality Act in 2010, we have to refer to for those pupils accessing education, promoting positive attitudes towards disabled people and encouraging participation. In terms of, as it relates to those with EHE, that's not something I've got the answer to for you tonight as part of this consultation, but certainly I think that's some feedback that we can address in terms of how those folks are catered for. But if they are home educated, obviously the duty of care to access that provision is within their own home, so it's limited in terms of what this would impact in that sense.
Okay. Can I just say something, Trevor, in terms of that? So are we saying then that our specialist ALN provision is full?
I think
that will affect the strategy going forward?
The honest answer to that is yes, our ALN provision is full.
Yeah.
And the honest answer again is no matter how big we make it, it will probably continue to be full because demand is so high. So it's really important that we make sure it is accessible as possible. And that's where these physical adaptations to schools and some of the capital investment is really, really important, because it's not acceptable for that to be a barrier to entry, if that makes sense.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you. Councillor Marshalsea.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate all of that. I thought it was really thorough and really honest and did what it needed to, so much appreciated. And you've just mentioned what I was going to ask a question about, basically Havan and Horizon. I haven't heard about those. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, so Havan and Horizon are some of the resource bases that we have in our mainstream schools. So again, it's very important for us to make sure that those additional needs can be met for social, emotional, behavioural challenges within the context of local schools. Mm-hmm. So those are provisions that are available through our outreach service and YYD and Dernewydd provision, and through some of our other schools. So it's just a type of provision to address some of those social, emotional, behavioural and complex needs cases within the local school environment, as opposed to saying that provision can be best met in a specialist school, if that makes sense.
Where are they based, those two?
So that's the Havan is done through YYD. So at the moment it's done at Dernewydd.
Okay.
And Horizon, I believe.
Horizon is in the mainstream Ysgol school in Penarth.
That's it, yeah.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch-Wilson.
A very interesting report. A few items have already come up. We were scheduled to have a visit to Ysgol. I just wondered how that was coming along.
Yep, it's in hand. Gareth's on leave at the moment, but he's in the process of organising that. So you'll be updated as and when. Councillor Gilligan.
Hi, can I just have an update after the recent press release of contractors going bankrupt about stage 2 of Ystaderi, please? Thank you.
That's not specifically in relation to this report. We did provide an update on how we were going through the retendering, or not the retendering, the reappointment process through the existing tendering process at the moment. So we do have contractors on site who are basically conducting an assessment of the stage of works that are currently at Llanderu in Cosmiston. So what that's going to do is outline any works that are going to be required for a new operator to take over the site, and then we'll know the cost and be able to take that program forward. So we do have contractors on site who are doing those assessments and surveys at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you. Again, Trevor, I do think the building of Ysgol 2 does have an impact, because it does show that the local authority is making additional provision for ALN. So I think it does kind of have some bearing on the strategy, just to kind of finish on a positive, really.
Thank you. Any other comments or queries? I've just got one, Trevor. So it talks about the specific learning difficulties outreach service, specialist service that supports children with difficulties in mainstream schools. And obviously that work has to be done with different mainstream schools. And I guess there's a difference in perhaps engagement from different schools and understanding of the process from different schools. So, you know, what's maybe being done to assist schools that aren't as on it as perhaps the other ones are.
In terms of supporting ALN provision across schools?
Yeah, so it's the specific learning difficulties outreach service helps different schools, but I guess there's, to be frank, ones who are better and ones who aren't quite as good, who need a bit more support with that.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of my other colleagues want to jump in on that, but we do, it's done through YYD, and we do a lot of comprehensive training, for example, for all of our schools. One, in terms of understanding what their role is in meeting needs in schools, for example, and what their duty of care is around those kids, but also making sure they have the skills and access to the tools to deliver that. So it isn't a case of there's only a certain number of schools where those kids would be provided for. The expectation is, as far as possible, every school needs to meet the same standard in what they deliver. And we do a lot of continued professional development work with staff through the outreach service and through YYD, for example, to make sure that those skills are there to support them. And then our role as officers in local government is to support those schools and make sure that they are actually delivering those services to those kids.
Great, and I see Liz Jones has got a hand up. Councillor Birch.
Oh.
Sorry.
Please, let Liz answer.
Go on, Rhiannon.
I've completely lost my train of thought now. All I was going to say is that, as you will be aware, every single school has an Elenco whose specific job is to look after children with identified special needs. When children come into school, whatever age they enter, if they haven't already been benchmarked, they will be looked at and, in order to see what kind of level of learning or ability they're coming in at, so that schools can identify needs very early on and put provision in place should they need it. And I know that Liz is going to say to you that our schools in the Vale are excellent at being able to meet children's needs within mainstream schooling. And it is only the few children who are going to require very specialist education facilities, such as the ones that we're providing at the various branches of Ysgol Derry. I'll hand over to Liz now.
Liz.
Thank you, Chair. And please, can I apologise profusely? I've had technical difficulties. I've only just managed to get in now. So I've come in mid-question, so I'm hoping I haven't got the wrong end of the stick. So I just heard, obviously, Councillor Birch and Trevor explain about specific learning difficulties. Was it just around specific learning difficulties?
Yeah, it was specific. The specific question was about the specific learning difficulties outreach service on page 13 of the report. So I was just asking about how they work with different mainstream schools.
Yeah. And the same is true for all of our outreach services. I mean, our schools have automatic access to any of our specialist teachers. And between our specialist teachers, specific learning difficulties included, we provide comprehensive professional learning programme. And we create that every year, and we base that on what schools tell us that they need. So we create agile programmes, if you like, that respond to need. So that would give you a flavour of the generic opportunities available to schools. However, if, for instance, a school feels that they need a bit more support, we will offer even further nuanced support for schools, and we will attend and run individual training sessions for schools if that's the case. And between not just the specific learning difficulty team, we have a comprehensive skill set, if you like, amongst our specialist teachers. And then we're complemented very well by staff at Ysgol Derry, making sure that we can cover more or less all bases. And if we feel that we are lacking, we also tap into regional support networks as well, making sure that we continuously look to improve. If we feel that another neighbouring local authority has stolen a march, if you like, we do work very well with other local authorities. So and likewise, we offer the same for them as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the comprehensive answer, Liz. I can't see any other hands up. So in that case, I move that, having considered the draft school accessibility strategy, that the comments made by committee today are referred to the Cabinet as part of the consultation process. We have a seconder, Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Diolch. Moving on to agenda item 5, draft Vale of Glamorgan Council on Corporate Plan 2025 to 2030. It's over to Liz.
Diolch, Chair. Can I ask, I have a presentation for members today. Liz, I think you're the one that's going to operate that for me. Oh, lovely, thank you. So I'm just going to take you through the paper that you have. This is obviously being presented to all scrutiny committees as it's part of our consultation on our new plan. Can I ask you to go to the next slide, please? So as part of the paper, it just articulates how we're going to deliver the duties under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And it sets out, as you would expect, our new wellbeing objectives, of which we have 5. It also shows that we're responding to the findings of the Let's Talk resident survey. That's been, as well as that and other consultations, we have made sure that that's quite widespread in terms of securing, information and views from our residents. Now, this provides a framework for our planning over the next 5 years as well, and how we intend to change the way we go about doing things, and critically how we're going to improve our services and how we're going to go about delivering said changes. It makes it clear what residents and partners can expect from us as well. And it provides, as you would expect, some details around the key challenges, of which there are many, as you would expect, because we all know we are sort of facing unprecedented issues. Throughout, you'll find that there are cross-cutting themes. There was a lot of deliberation about whether they should be standalone objectives, but you will find, as I maybe take you through the presentation, that there are some that run throughout the whole of the objectives. Importantly, it includes a statement about how we're going to work together, because this is not something that is seen as being done to our residents and our children and young people. This is something we intend to do with all of the residents that we have in the Vale. And critically, it brings together actions relating to poverty. This, as mentioned earlier, this is the cross-cutting issue, and it deserves to be mentioned in all of our objectives. The corporate plan itself is obviously, as you would expect, scrutinised, and it is audited, and we will be judged against the commitments in the plan itself. Could I have the next slide, please? The structure of the plan itself follows, is as follows. As you'd expect, you'll have a forward that that provides a précis for you about what to expect. It will also show some contextual information, because you do need facts and figures to understand where maybe our priorities have stemmed from. It lists the key challenges, particularly around inequalities, poverty, climate change, and nature emergencies. And we are showing how we intend to reshape, really, because it's not a question of doing what we've always done. There really is a need to look at doing things differently, hence the reshaping agenda, and then looking at placemaking, engagement, and partnership. We do have a relationship commitment as well, because we make it explicit what others can expect to receive from us. There are 5 wellbeing objectives, which we'll come on to in a minute. And alongside the 5 wellbeing objectives, they are supported by outcomes. Broadly speaking, there are 10 outcomes for each of the 5 wellbeing objectives. And as already mentioned, the tackling poverty runs throughout all of it. It is not a standalone. It deserves to be tackled under each and every one of the wellbeing objectives. As part of the plan also, it will articulate to you what the monitoring arrangements are and the evaluation arrangements as well. And in order to provide some provide further information on some of the glossary. There's a glossary, of terms used, and there are appendices in the back in order maybe to articulate some further information that helps with the understanding of the plan itself. Could I have the next slide, please? There are 5 wellbeing objectives: creating great places to live, work and visit. And the detail for those will be through placemaking, planning, barrier regeneration, the economy, tourism, housing, leisure and cultural opportunities, jobs, civic pride, age-friendly community, heritage and culture, business, social enterprise, and the third sector. The second objective will be respecting and celebrating the environment, and you'd expect this through looking at climate change, net zero, nature emergency, green spaces, active travel, transport, energy, waste, flooding and coast, food and pollution. The third objective is giving everyone a good start in life, So looking through child poverty, schools, sport and play, training and skills, youth engagement, health issues, preventative services, well-being and family support. The fourth objective is supporting and protecting those who need us. So looking at independence, safeguarding, children looked after, carers, homelessness, adult care, social housing and support, advice and information services, county of sanctuary, working with health and the third sector. And the final objective is being the best council we can be. It's looking at being more customer focused, looking at workforce development, financial sustainability, our assets, digital, procurement, involvement, equality, access, Welsh language, social value, and the transformation agenda. Thank you. If I could have the next slide, please. Now, this is our relationship statement because we're trying to make it clear and emphasise the fact that this is not about doing things to the residents. This is about working with our communities. So in line with the fact that we are very much a values-based council, it's articulating what we believe that our residents and children and young people should expect from us. We expect to be open and honest, giving our communities the chance to be involved in decisions and making sure that their voices are heard. We intend making sure that there is enough time for communities to share feedback and to share it in different ways on all of our council plans. If we feel that we can't do anything, we expect to be able to explain what is and isn't possible and why. We intend providing clear and simple information about grants and opportunities and making it clear and obvious what the expectations are for delivery and timelines. The expectation is that we work with various organisations to solve problems and find opportunities. We're not setting ourselves up to be trying to make decisions on behalf of people. It's recognised that we need to work through any issues with communities to find mutual solutions. We intend to listen to ideas and make sure that there are easy ways to get in touch and to support communities in managing local services. And then lastly, we do expect to respect our diverse communities and to make sure that we value all of our individuals and aim for fairness and to celebrate our Welsh culture. Thank you. If I could have the next slide. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to move to slide 10, only because this is a generic presentation that's been created for all of our scrutiny committees. And there are examples for each scrutiny committee to look at. So I've asked to go straight to slide 10, which is looking at things that will be of particular interest to us, really. And this just gives a flavour of the sorts of actions that you'll find for our area. So an example of an objective would be to make sure that there are affordable and accessible ways for people to participate in leisure, play, sport, culture and heritage activities. We intend to support our schools and communities to work together to deliver improved outcomes and opportunities for learners and the wider community and improve attendance in our schools. So we expect to provide a range of services and activities through our libraries from early years throughout childhood, encouraging learning, confidence and creativity. The expectation is that we empower and enable young people to have a strong voice, to influence decision-making and inform how services are provided and ensure the Vale is a great place to grow up. We will be delivering a new school improvement service which empowers schools to deliver better outcomes for learners. We will also be developing and improving links between schools, universities, colleges and businesses to ensure people have the right skills to access current and future employment opportunities. We will be looking to improve the availability, consistency and quality of local provision for learners with complex additional learning needs and those with social, emotional and mental health needs. And then lastly, we will be promoting equal opportunities and deliver the strategic equality plan and our commitment as part of the Always Action plans. Now, this isn't the comprehensive list. This is meant just to give you a flavour of the sorts of things that are included under our section, really. And of course, in time, we will be bringing information back to Scrutiny to monitor our progress against some of the actions that I've just taken you through. Would you mind going on to slide 13, please? As I mentioned earlier, tackling poverty runs throughout. It is not a standalone issue because it deserves to be treated under all of our objectives. Because it is the responsibility of all of us. And again, this is just meant to give you a flavour, really, of the sort of actions that are included in our corporate plan. We will be delivering an integrated programme of work to prevent and tackle poverty with a particular focus on our most deprived communities, and that relates specifically to Objective 4 of our wellbeing plan. We will be looking to support a change in how people travel by increasing opportunities for active travel and promoting the need for quality and timely local public transport services. And that relates to Objective 2. We will be improving how services are provided to ensure all are enabled to access services and information in a way that best meets their needs. We will be making sure that there are affordable and accessible ways for people to participate in leisure, play, sport, culture and heritage activities. We will be focusing on families of children living in poverty and help them to increase their income, access food and housing and escape poverty through wraparound support and advice services, including extending the Flying Start model. We will be focusing on families of children living in poverty and help them to increase their income. Or you'll have to excuse me, that is a repeat of just what I've said there. So apologies for that. That is a fault on the slide there. We will be delivering wraparound advice and support services to prevent homelessness and provide housing options. We will be developing and improving links between schools, colleges, universities and business to ensure people have the right skills and access current and future employment opportunities. We will be looking to increase the supply of good quality, accessible and affordable housing. And we will be delivering a food strategy for the Vale. Again, that is not meant to be a comprehensive list. It's just meant to give you a flavour of the sorts of things that are included to tackle poverty and to give you an idea of how the tackling poverty agenda runs through all of our priorities. Thank you. If I could go on to the next slide, please. Now, as you would expect, there is an expectation to monitor our performance and we will be looking, and we are actually linking with annual budget process. We're rationalising annual plans with closer links to the annual self-assessment process, recognising that we need to be sharper and far more integrated in the approach that we take. There will be the development of key measures for each objective so that there is clarity about what you're measuring against and what you are scrutinising. There will be a more streamlined and timely performance reports. And we will be focusing far more so on outcomes as opposed to just the busyness of actions. Has it actually led to a difference? It's the so what question. And there will be more themed reports recognising what's worked well. So it'll be similar to the cost of living and the Project Zero progress, which again is more focused and gives you an idea of impact of actions. If I could have the next slide, please. This gives you a flavour of the timetable for the consultation and then leading to the publication of the plan. It went for Cabinet approval on the 10th of October. On the 14th the consultation itself launched, this being part of it. The consultation will close on the 8th of December, and as you would expect, the plan will be revised following a consultation. On the 19th of February, it'll go to the Corporate Scrutiny Committee to consider outcomes of the consultation and the revised plan. And then the following day, the Cabinet will consider the revised plan and the consultation outcome, with the expectation by the 3rd of March, the Council will have approved the new plan, and by the 1st of April, that will then be live because the plan will actually be published. And then the final slide, if you don't mind. Oh, I think we've just missed one. So this just gives you more in-depth information about what's going to happen between the 14th of October and the 8th of December, which is the consultation going live. It's just to reassure you that really that key partners have been emailed directly, and our communication team is making sure that this is shared widely. There will be there's an online service as well as hard copies in libraries and other venues. There will be face-to-face public drop-in sessions. There are 4 of those that have been arranged. There are then specific stakeholder engagement events, as well as focus sessions with the third sector and stakeholders on the relationship statement. There are further focus sessions on tackling poverty. There will be sessions with young people through the youth service, where there is also the expectation that we will be engaging with the 50+ forum at the AGM. There are 7 committee meetings, including the voluntary sector and elected member briefings. There is then the Equality Consultative Forum and Engagement Champions Network, and staff engagement, including the diverse and the GLAM networks and trade unions. So I'm hoping that gives you an indication that the consultation will be widespread and ensuring that we take the views of a wide range of stakeholder and delivery partners into consideration before then identifying changes or amending the corporate plan for consideration by the Cabinet. And then it's really over to the floor if there are any questions, Chair.
Thanks very much for that, Liz. So yeah, over to committee. Councillor Asbury.
Thank you. It seems absolutely massive. And I just wonder how this is going to be funded, and if people's voices are going to be heard, in which way? Will it be this consultation going on? Will you need a certain number of people to say the same thing for them to be listened to? Will it just be good ideas? I can't really see how it's going to work. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. That is an interesting question because, as you rightly say, how are you going to respond to maybe the myriad different suggestions? Now, it would be foolish of me to try and answer that because, of course, I'm here just to be able to share the process with you, but it's certainly something that I can take back, that there is concerns about how would you try and contain, if you like, and manage the extent of the feedback and the comments coming back.
Thanks. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Liz. I'm interested in the good start in life element that concerns learning and scrutiny, and that is around tonight's discussion we've had around the ALN strategy, and that is about those that are not captured by mainstream school or by homeschooling. How do we ensure that they also have a good start in life? I know it's a big, broad question, but it's something that's been brought up by the public also. So how do we ensure that that is fed back as well?
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Were you thinking about those that that are too young to go to school, or those that have maybe chosen to electively home educate? Could you explain a bit more to me?
Those that are not in home education, those that are not had their needs met in mainstream school, but those that may have additional learning needs that are not in school.
If they're not in school, I suppose it's only me trying to understand the question. Yeah. If they're not in school, where would I expect to find them?
Well, they'd be at home or with childcare provision, but they're not. I've had a few questions about ALN needs not being met. So in terms of how we go forward, because it relates to the strategy we've discussed today, and in terms of the good start in life, how do we get that feedback, not just via me, but via those who are, again, missing their education? Because I'm not saying it, they say that the local authority doesn't meet their needs.
Okay, because obviously you've got some information, haven't you? So clearly somebody has fed back to you, and it might be a number of voices. So in order for us to make sure that we do capture this, would you mind if we carried on the conversation maybe outside the meeting for me to figure out how am I missing things, and to make sure that we do rectify that?
Lovely. Yes, I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marshalsea.
Hi, thanks, Liz. Basically, I was just wondering about, I really think the objective around getting children off to a good start is exactly what's needed. From being an early years teacher, I know that first sort of 3-4 years in a child's life is some of the most important. And I was just going to ask about the fly and stop provision and it being rolled out. Do you know more about how that is going to be happening and any timeframes?
No, is the short answer. But I can obviously, I just don't have that at my fingertips. But obviously, I will be able to provide that information for you after the meeting. So if that's okay with you, I can go and do some research and come back to you with maybe timelines and things like that.
Great. Another one, Liz, sorry, while you're there, I'm guessing you'll probably need to find this out as well. Objective 5, I really like the honesty of actually only 42% disagreed that services were of high quality. I know from conversations with members of the public that when people are having a moan about the council, I will obviously sometimes ask the question of, oh, what do you think about your child's school? Or what about social services? And their answers are very different. I know that people's perspective of the council is that people generally tend to think about waste services and highways, which is such a small percentage. So could it be passed on to the comms team, any work we can do to try and ensure that people really understand what percentages of our budget go on those things? And actually 45%, I think it is, goes on education.
Yeah, you're quite right. It is a significant proportion of the council's budget. So yes, I think that would be something well worth taking back to the comms team to make it, as you say, to make it clear to our residents, where emphasis is placed, if you like, in terms of, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Lynch-Wilson.
Hi, I was very interested to see that poverty is actually the forefront of everything you're doing. I've seen myself in the primary school where we've had people come into the school arranging courses for people to get back into work. And the missed opportunities if you haven't got that sort of thing, where you learning simple things like how to make their food go further by cooking and what to buy, and it does make such a difference to families. And I've seen ones who've done the various courses and gone on to further education, gone on to get better jobs, and provide for their families. So all these things that go into schools, all these extra things, help so much to relieve poverty and stop people have missed opportunities. Because when you're in poverty, and it affects the child, it's the missed opportunities, the not being able to access books and just go on school trips, all these sorts of things, everything that helps a child gain, because education just isn't books, it's the whole package. And if you are in poverty, it's very difficult to get these extra things. So anything that leads to help with in that section is brilliant.
Thank you for that. And, well, I'd agree with all of that. And we are working well with our schools. And to be fair, our schools are responding exceptionally well to this challenge because we're trying to make sure that, the curriculum is appropriate, the opportunities are appropriate. It'll be no surprise to you because in the Vale, lots of our schools are already engaging in what's called community-focused schools. So that is an aspiration of ours, that all of our schools become community-focused schools, and that's exactly to do what you've just described, which is make sure that we can provide as many of the right opportunities as possible, but also to have a real clear focus on what is the purpose of schools. So making it clear that the incontrovertible way out of poverty is to make sure that our children have the right skills so that they can become lifelong learners and that they can, that they are suitably skilled enough to take on the jobs that are within our communities and certainly within our local authority. So that is the intention, and thank you for those comments.
Okay, over to the Vale Youth Council now.
So it's less of a question and more of a statement, but we thought that from a young person's standing, it's difficult to understand the objectives as they are written in a fairly complicated and technical way. Just thought we'd add that.
Thank you. That's always a helpful observation. And something that we've been thinking about for a while is looking at how do we make the information that we provide more accessible to everybody, because you'll see written throughout all of that. That was our relationship statement, is that we were saying that we would need to make sure that information was available in a range of different ways to make sure that everybody felt that they could access the information available. So we will be making sure to prepare different ways of getting our message across, and not maybe just the report that you've seen and not just the presentation that I've seen. It's recognising that this needs to be accessible in a range of formats to all of our residents and children and young people, so that they do feel that they can contribute and have a view on it. But thank you for those comments. Those are taken on board. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thanks very much. Over to Councillor Birch.
Thank you. I wanted to address what Councillor Asbury said about it being a huge task, and I agree. I think it is a momentous task. But in order to get our constituents, the people out there who, you know, we are representing, to understand what we are trying to do, you know, for them, for our communities, we have to go through these consultation processes. It's not enough to just trot round every 4 years, knocking on people's doors, asking what they want. I think we need to have regular engagement with our communities and our constituents in order to find out what they think about what we're doing, what they think about what we are proposing to do, and making them aware that the council is not just about a bin collection, which is what comes up on the doorsteps over and over again, isn't it? People often don't seem to be aware what the council does do, and it has a huge variety of tasks that it undertakes, but also what the council can't do. I mean, you know, very unrealistic expectations of what is it within our capacity. So I think any form of education that allows people to understand what we can, what we can't do, and what we are hoping to do for them has got to be a good thing. And we have had consultations in the past, and the results, I'm not saying the results are disappointing. What I mean is the level of engagement has been disappointing. And I think we owe it to ourselves and our communities to make sure that they engage as fully as possible, even if it means taking, the kind of guides to the questionnaires round to every community group that we're all aware of, you know, encouraging people to fill them in libraries, whatever, political parties, whatever, so that there is as wide a variety of response as possible, because only then can we shape what we are doing going forward and, you know, recognise that perhaps in some ways we might be going in the wrong direction, and in other ways people want more of what we're actually providing. So while it is a huge task, it has to be done. We expect all government, all forms of elected government to be accountable, and this is how we are taking that task forward. So, you know, while I recognise the magnitude of it, it is something that's very important, and I'd like us to see us, all of us, because it is our council, to engage in this as fully as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ewan Goodjohn.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Liz, for the presentation. I wanted to ask around Objective 3, Action 10, which is to do with empowering young people to have a stronger voice in decision-making in the council. We already have a strong amount of decision-making power for our young people. We have the representatives here of Learning and Culture, we have our Youth Council, and we have the fantastic participation team in the youth service. But how are we going to strengthen that? What is the vision for the future that you see, Liz, as part of this corporate plan, to have younger people having a stronger voice and making sure that we're fully listening to young people as a core part of our residents that we are serving as a council? I have a second part to this, but I think I'll save that for after this responds to the first point.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Part of it, I think I touched upon earlier. To me, it's about making sure that we create either documentation or information. It doesn't have to be documentation, it's just information that is worded in a way that isn't dependent on maybe corporate speak. The report itself reads really well, and and it is comprehensive and articulate. But going back to the point that the Youth Council made, we need to make it clear what looks good on paper in terms of sound bites, how you capture maybe high level wellbeing objectives. How does that translate into ordinary everyday life, such as how do you walk the talk? So at the first instance, I'd be looking to make sure that the information that we make available is understood, well, not just understood, but first of all, influenced by young people, so that when they do contribute, they know what they're contributing to, and that the language used is really clear and unambiguous. So that's as a starting point. What I would like to do as well is strengthen it through making sure that we capture the that we strengthen practice in our schools. The youth work that we do is very strong, and you will know that because, of course, as a council, our youth team has succeeded in achieving very high accolades. But it doesn't mean to say that we then stop and rest on our laurels. It is then about looking at even further developing the work that we do in schools with youth councils in schools, and again making sure that all voices are heard, and making more of an effort to maybe reach out to those who traditionally don't find it that easy to respond or engage with us. It is incumbent on us that we make sure that we understand what barriers there are and try to mitigate those. Thank you.
If I can come back in, Chair, I think that's fantastic to hear. I think they've got the right ambition here. If I would make 2 points, firstly, I would say it doesn't just need to be in the documents that we produce that needs to be accessible. It needs to be every part of the council, from something as basic as the website to the social media that we're putting out, that the terms that we use is accessible, and that the way we expect people to engage with us is accessible as well. But I think the point is well made. The other thing I would say is making sure that it's a two-way conversation. Time after time, we've seen whether it be with C1V, corporate relations, even when in my experience with Cadoxton House, we've seen the council is seen as a one-way conversation, that they're talking to people, talking at people, and we need to make sure that it's seen as a two-way, and if there's something that we can't do, that we explain why that is and try and make remedies for that. So that's very good to hear. The second point that I was alluding to within the Youth Council is there any plans to work with the head of digital, Nikki, and trying to use that reshaping transformation to improve the quality of the services of the Youth Council and of the youth service as a whole, that we can improve youth engagement using digital platforms and increasing our digital reach? I know that the social media team in the youth service at the moment is quite a small, and the reach, as fantastic as the services it provides, is quite low and focused on a core group of young people. So is there any plans to try and expand that and to use digital to not only make things more cost effective, but hopefully vastly improve the quality of the service that the youth service provides?
Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. I don't know is the answer, but I would like there to be one. I must say, I do like the idea of what you were suggesting. That's not to say that maybe it hasn't been considered. So forgive me if I don't have the answer, and it would be wrong of me to say that it has or hasn't. I just simply don't know whether that's the case. So if I go and make some further inquiries and get back to you on that one, but it certainly sounds like a really the right thing that we should be doing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And if it's not, then I'll make that comment. And I think working between the digital team and the youth service, I think would be quite positive when it comes to the reshaping agenda. Anyway, thank you so much. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ewan. I can't see any other hands up. I have a couple of questions, Liz. My first one is, obviously 2030 is a long way off, and there's council elections in between now and then, and a lot can change in Wales and the UK and the world. I mean, what happens if these targets aren't met in 2030? Who's carrying the can?
Well, I think as part of the monitoring arrangements, obviously we would expect to bring information back to Scrutiny you know, on a regular basis anyway. So, you know, we wouldn't be waiting until 2030 to let you know if we were off track or not. So that should be, again, we're looking to rationalise some of the current arrangements so that there is a much more of a clear focus and a sharper focus, so that, again, it enables Scrutiny to scrutinise, you know, the work of officers, really, in delivering against these objectives and the actions. So I'd like to say to you that we would never get to 2030 and then realise that we were off course. We would be bringing information to you, and if there was a need to course correct because we got something really wrong or the world had changed again, that Scrutiny would be aware of that far sooner, and that we would be bringing mitigating actions to Scrutiny to consider.
Great. Thanks, Liz. And just one more thing from me. So page 13, it's the opening part of the poverty section, talks about the well-being of too many people and continues to be affected by financial hardship, poorer health outcomes, crime disorder, and unequal exposure to environmental risk, which is obviously true in all those cases. But I think it might be important to add poor educational outcomes to that list because it's a core part of tackling poverty, as you mentioned earlier, which was great. And I wanted to ask specifically about qualifications in teaching. So as the document changes, is there going to be any specific focus on improving the basics in schools with things like reading and writing, and also any targets for the attainment of qualifications?
Well, yeah, because and as I alluded to earlier with the community focused schools approach, it's about being clear what we expect of schools, and it's about looking at the skills that children leave school with, whether that's either at a primary or at a secondary level, but making sure that there is clarity about what we expect of schools and what obviously where we expect children to be at the end of transition from primary to secondary, and then secondary either on to, well, it could be further education, it could be higher education, or it could be the world of work, but to have clarity what we expect of schools. But there will definitely be a focus on looking at basic skills of literacy and numeracy as well, okay, to support that.
Great, thank you, Liz. Councillor Asbury.
Yeah, sorry to jump in on this one, but I'm just wondering about the skills and qualifications of teachers, because we're probably aware that not every teacher, in inverted commas, in schools now is a qualified teacher with QTS. Some are HILTers or TAs. So is there any plans for that to make all teachers in school QTS qualified?
You'll have to help me a bit more with the question. I'm sorry, I haven't quite got to grasp
I jumped in.
I understand. Sorry.
I jumped in on what was just said, really, because you're talking about children having skills, etc. And I know that there are many schools throughout the country now, and also in the Vale, that children are being taught by higher level teaching assistants and not QTS teacher qualified. It's up to individual schools, I'm aware of that, but I'm just wondering if there's any plans in the corporate plan to make sure the teachers are highly qualified as well as the children.
Well, all teachers, obviously by nature of being QTS, should be qualified in to be able
if they
to
have
teach
QTS.
children.
Yeah.
So I suppose the issue is, and maybe you're far more aware of this than I am, it seems as if you're saying that maybe HLTAs are teaching children. Well, of course, a HLTA is allowed to take over some of the duties whilst working with children, but it's not instead of teachers, because ultimately it is the teacher that has the responsibility for making sure that the needs of those children are met and they may be ably assisted by HLTAs. However, if you are aware that that's happening, I wouldn't mind learning a bit more about it so that I can get a better understanding of what your concerns are, if that sounds okay.
That would be great.
You.
That would be great. I can email you, because I do know that HLTAs, high-level teacher assistants, are taking some classes, and of course parents would not be aware that they do not have QTS. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. I can't see any other virtual hands up. So in that instance, I move that, having considered the draft Council and Corporate Plan, the comments made by committee today are referred to the Director of Corporate Resources in the Cabinet as part of the consultation process. Seconder, Councillor Payne, thank you very much for your hand up. And thanks, Liz, and everyone for your contributions tonight. That's the final agenda item. So our next meeting is on Monday, December the 9th. Nostar.